The mother figure, dressed in an elegant cream-colored blouse and a pearl necklace, stands with her arms tightly crossed. Her expression is one of weary resignation, her eyes closed as she lets out a soft sigh. "Then I suppose I can't stop you," she says, her voice carrying the weight as someone who has lost the will to argue, conceding to her daughter's wishes despite her own reservations. A close-up of the protagonist reveals a small, mischievous chibi icon of herself in the corner of her mind. She reflects inwardly on the power dynamic within the household. She realizes that her mother's strictness has a glaring weakness, her obsession with status. The protagonist notes with a smirk that the moment she mentions Yanyak as an excuse, her mother's resistance instantly vanishes, letting her off the hook once again. The narrative shifts to a grim memory from the past. In a bird's-eye view of the living room, the protagonist recalls her father's volatile temper. The scene shows a broken porcelain vase shattered across the floor, the water and flowers spilled like a wreckage. Her father stands over the mess, pointing an accusing finger in a fit of rage, while her mother stands by, trembling and covering her mouth in shock. The protagonist remembers a time when skipping a family dinner was an offense that triggered violent outbursts. Back in the present, the protagonist prepares to leave, her footsteps echoing with a sharp clomp on the floor. As she tells her mother, "I'll be back tomorrow," her internal monologue continues to sharply critique her parents' ambitions. She wonders bitterly to herself, do they really want a prosecutor's son-in-law that badly? It becomes clear that her safety and freedom are currently bought only by her association with a man of high social standing. The final moment captures the protagonist, Na-young, walking away with a cold, composed expression. She is dressed professionally in a floral blouse and a cropped brown blazer. As she passes by, her mother calls out her name, Na-young, perhaps as a final attempt to reclaim some authority, or simply to acknowledge her exit. Na-young doesn't look back. She has used their social climbing desires to secure her own exit, leaving the oppressive atmosphere of the family home behind for the night. Just as Na-young is about to make her exit, her mother's voice cuts through the air, stopping her dead in her tracks. The word "halt" appears vividly on the screen as Na-young freezes. Her mother delivers a reminder that carries a hidden threat. "Your father has high hopes for you." It is a phrase meant to sound encouraging, but in this house, high hopes are merely a heavy burden of obligation that Na-young is forced to carry. The camera focuses on the back of Na-young's head and shoulders, capturing her rigid posture. She does not turn around to face her mother. The sharp lines around her suggest a sudden tension in the atmosphere. Even from behind, her stillness conveys the internal wall she has built to protect herself from her family's constant demands and the suffocating expectations placed upon her shoulders. Her mother continues to pile on the pressure, revealing the true reason for her concerns. She informs Na-young that her father wants to meet with Yun-hook alone in the near future. "So be sure to bring it up with him tonight," she commands. The instruction is clear. Na-young is being used as a pawn to facilitate a meeting that will likely further her father's social and professional ambitions. A close-up of Na-young's profile reveals her true reaction to the news. A bead of sweat rolls down her temple, and the sound effect, gulp, emphasizes her growing anxiety. She understands the subtext of her mother's words perfectly. To the outside world, it sounds like a father wanting to get to know his daughter's partner, but Na-young knows there is a much darker meaning behind the request. The final scene transitions into Na-young's internal thoughts, set against a fractured crystalline background that reflects her breaking composure. She realizes the precariousness of her situation. "If things don't work out with Yun-hook, my father will make me pay for it," she thinks to herself. The relationship is no longer just a romantic endeavor. It has become a high-stakes gamble for her own safety and survival within the family. The atmosphere is thick with tension and a sense of impending dread. A young woman with short, dark hair stands frozen, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and terror. Behind her, a massive, imposing figure of an older man looms like a dark specter. His face is etched with deep lines of sternness, and his cold, calculating gaze pierces through the dim, blue-toned light. The word loom hangs in the air, emphasizing the suffocating psychological pressure he exerts over her. The scene shifts to a slightly more controlled environment, though the unease remains visible. The young woman has turned away, offering a small, tight-lipped smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. A bead of sweat trickles down her face, betraying her inner anxiety despite her polite words. She responds with a submissive, "Okay, Mom," suggesting a complex and perhaps demanding family dynamic that forces her to hide her true feelings behind a mask of obedience. The heavy mood of the previous encounter begins to fade into the background as the setting changes. Under a soft, gradient sky of pink and orange hues, the focus shifts to a professional task. An off-screen voice calls out, "Miss G, are we installing these here?" signaling a transition from personal turmoil to the bustling activity of her professional life. The location is revealed through a striking architectural shot. The sun glints off the modern, geometric glass and steel structures of a high-end building. A bold text box appears on the screen, identifying the setting as Gallery 4. The bright, clean lines of the building suggest a world of art, sophistication, and high-stakes business. Within the gallery, the energy is lively and focused. A woman with reddish-brown hair tied back, presumably a colleague or assistant, gestures upward with a confident finger while looking toward the installation site. She confirms the plan with a sharp, "Yes, that's right." The movement lines around her head indicate a quick, decisive turn, showing that in this environment, Miss G and her team are in their element, moving forward with their work despite any shadows from the past. Amidst the busy preparation at the gallery, Ms. G takes charge of the physical layout. She spots a potential error and immediately calls out to one of the workers. "Ah, Jensu, the partition doesn't go there." Her sharp eye for detail ensures that every element of the exhibition is placed exactly according to the plan. The narrative voice indicates that a few days passed since then, marking a transition into a period of deep professional immersion. Ms. G is seen working closely with a colleague, reviewing documents with a look of intense concentration. She instructs her teammate to double-check the quantity for this part, showing her commitment to precision as the deadline looms. Despite the constant activity, a personal shadow hangs over Ms. G's professional life. As she handles the paperwork for the exhibition, her mind drifts to a nagging absence. The narration reveals her internal state. She still hadn't heard a word from Yen Yuk, suggesting a painful lack of communication from someone important to her. As the opening date approaches, the workload becomes nearly all-consuming. Ms. G admits that with the exhibition right around the corner, she was simply too busy to think about anything else. The background turns into a dizzying swirl of colorful lines, representing the overwhelming sensory input and the voices of colleagues calling her name from every direction. The mounting pressure finally reaches a boiling point. In a stylized, comedic depiction of her mental fatigue, she's shown as a tiny, overwhelmed figure with swirling eyes, stumbling through the chaos. As voices continue to shout, "Ms. G!" in the background, she has to mentally scream at herself to get it together to avoid being swept away by the stress of the event. The story begins with a close-up of a wall clock, its hand steadily approaching the vertical line. The realization hits home. It is already 11 p.m. The silence of the late hour is broken only by a heavy sigh of exhaustion as the realization sets in that the day has slipped away far faster than expected. We see a small, stylized thought bubble from Miss G, who looks visibly drained and worried. She is preoccupied with the mounting pressure of their project. She thinks to herself that at the current slow pace, they are in serious danger of failing to finish all the displays by the scheduled deadline. The stress of the workload is clearly weighing on her mind. The tension of the overtime work is interrupted when a colleague approaches Miss G. With an apologetic and slightly frantic expression, the coworker explains her situation. She has to head out immediately if she wants to catch the very last train for the night. The reality of the late hour is forcing the team to split up, leaving the remaining work in a state of uncertainty. As the colleague prepares to leave, she calls out softly, Miss Jungwa," trying to get the attention of another person in the room, likely the woman in the dark patterned cardigan. The atmosphere is thick with the professional courtesy and the underlying stress of an unfinished job. In the final panel, the woman in the foreground stops what she's doing. She responds with a calm, "just a moment," while the sound effect, "rummage," appears, indicating she is searching for something, perhaps her keys, a phone, or a parting gift or item for the colleague who was rushing to the station. Miss G looks on from the background, her face reflecting the exhaustion of a long night that isn't over yet. In a close-up of a hand, we see a soft, pink-tinted background that emphasizes the warmth of the moment. The woman reaches out and offers a small but meaningful package, saying, "Here, take this." Inside her palm is a bandage in a 50,000 won bill, showing her immediate concern for her colleague's well-being. The younger colleague is visibly moved by the unexpected gesture. Her eyes sparkle with tears, indicated by the word teary, and she covers her mouth in surprise and gratitude. The sparkling effects surrounding her reflect just how touched she is by this sudden act of generosity. The woman with reddish hair smiles gently as she explains her reasoning. She noticed that her colleague had hurt herself earlier, so she insists that she use the bandage and take a taxi home instead of rushing for the last train. Her gaze is full of genuine care, prioritizing the employee's health and safety over the looming project deadlines. Adjusting her collar with a calm and professional demeanor, the woman offers a final parting word: "Get home safe." The focus on her necklace and composed posture suggests a person of authority who leads with both strength and empathy. The scene shifts to a charming, chibi-style illustration to capture the light-hearted and emotional end of the encounter. The colleague is completely touched, her eyes turned into large, sparkling orbs as she thinks to herself, "Miss G." Surrounding her are smiling coworkers, creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and warmth that lightens the heavy burden of their work. The scene opens with a burst of cheerful energy. A small, stylized version of Miss G appears at the top of a fluffy speech bubble, her hands coming together in a rhythmic clap-clap. With a bright, encouraging smile, she announces to her team that the hard work is nearly over. "All right, let's just check the schedule and call it a day," she exclaims, signaling the transition from the day's labor to a well-deserved rest. The morale of the group instantly lifts at her words. Chibi-style versions of the staff members, 2 men in caps and a smiling woman, respond in unison with a spirited, "Yes, Miss G." Their faces are framed by delicate flowers and a vibrant orange "Yay" floating in the background, illustrating the genuine respect and fondness they have for their leader. As the team prepares to depart, the atmosphere shifts to a more grounded, realistic style. While the others head out, one colleague lingers behind, noticing that Miss G has not yet moved toward the exit. The colleague tilts her head curiously, looking down at Miss G, who is crouched low to the floor. "Are you not heading out, Miss G?" she asks, her voice laced with a mixture of concern and confusion at seeing her boss still focused on the workspace. Miss G looks up from her crouched position, her expression calm and professional. She offers a reassuring look to her colleague, her reddish-brown hair tied back neatly as she stays behind in the dimming light of the room. "I'll leave soon," she replies softly. In the background, a few stray nails can be seen scattered near a wooden structure, hinting at the unfinished task that has caught her eye. The focus tightens on Miss G as she explains her persistence. Despite the long day, her dedication to the safety of her team and the quality of their environment remains her top priority. With a gentle but firm gaze, she clarifies her intentions. "I just want to tidy up a few nails for safety." It is a quiet, powerful moment that highlights her character, a leader who doesn't just give orders, but stays behind to ensure every detail is perfect before she finally goes home. The colleague, still looking visibly worried, hesitates to leave Miss G behind to work alone. Sensing the extra burden on her leader, she makes a heartfelt offer. "Then I'll also stay." But she's quickly interrupted. Miss G, ever mindful of her team's well-being, looks up with a gentle, appreciative smile and declines the help. "I'd feel bad if you do that," she says, her voice warm but firm, making it clear that she doesn't want her staff to sacrifice their personal time for a minor task. To ease her colleague's guilt, Miss G offers a practical reason for staying behind. She smiles softly, tilting her head as she adds, "I live close by anyway." This small detail serves as a comforting reassurance, suggesting that her commute won't be a burden and that the colleague should feel free to head home without any lingering concerns. The scene shifts back to a light-hearted, chibi-style illustration as the final farewell takes place. Miss G's small, floating head gives a cheerful command, "Go on home." Her colleague, now finally convinced, responds with a sleepy but obedient, "Yes, Miss G," as she prepares to exit the building. The building's architecture looms in the background, highlighting the quietness of the approaching evening. As the sound of footsteps fades away, a heavy silence descends upon the workspace. A jagged, spiky speech bubble appears over the empty area, reflecting a deep sense of relief. "Phew, finally, I'm alone." The thought echoes through the room. The camera pans over the floor, showing the scattered nails and wooden frames that still require her attention. Now truly alone, the weight of the day finally seems to catch up with Miss G. She is seen from a high angle, looking small and weary as she crouches on the bare floor with her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes are closed, and a small sigh symbol escapes her as she takes a moment to breathe in the solitude. Dressed in her work sweater and beige trousers, she sits amidst the stray nails, gathering her strength before she begins the final task of the night. The camera zooms in for an intimate close-up of her face. Her eyes, a warm and striking shade of reddish pink, are filled with a gentle, shimmering light. A faint, serene smile plays on her lips. In this close proximity, we see the true impact of the gallery's silence. It isn't just an external quiet, but an internal peace that reflects in her soft expression and the sparkle of her diamond earring. The story begins with a wide, airy view of an art gallery, bathed in soft, ethereal light. The architecture is modern and minimalist, creating an atmosphere of profound stillness. As the narrator looks up at the vast ceiling and down at the curated frames on the walls, a thought drifts through their mind. When I'm left by myself in the quiet gallery, I feel more at ease than at any other place. It is a moment of deep, personal connection with the space, where the rush of the outside world finally fades away. In the heart of this sanctuary, a woman with auburn hair tied in a neat bun is seen crouching low to the floor. She isn't just passing through, she is immersing herself in the environment. Dressed in a cozy dark sweater and tan trousers, she leans forward slightly, her gaze fixed on something just out of frame. The perspective is tilted, emphasizing her grounded connection to the wooden floors and the peaceful solitude that surrounds her. As she looks out, her peaceful expression deepens into a look of quiet resolve. A thought bubble appears above her, framed by a soft, radiant border that matches her internal state. She realizes that this feeling of tranquility is too precious to keep to herself. She thinks, I want to give others a space that feels this peaceful too. It is a moment of inspiration, a desire to share the healing power of art and silence with the world. Suddenly, the spell of silence is broken. The woman's eyes widen, and a look of mild shock replaces her calm smile. A startled sound effect cuts across the scene as she is jolted back to reality. Her thoughts shift abruptly from artistic dreams to the buzzing of her phone or a sudden noise. Who's calling me at this hour? The peaceful sanctuary has been pierced by the demands of the outside world, leaving her wide-eyed and wondering who could be reaching out to her in this private moment. Dressed in her elegant dark cardigan and green-collared shirt, the woman lifts the phone, her white-gloved hand gripping the device with a mix of caution and surprise. A single bead of sweat rolls down her temple, and her brow furrows as she stares at the screen. The tranquil smile from moments ago has completely vanished, replaced by a look of concern and slight apprehension. She stands frozen in the middle of the gallery, the weight of the caller's identity clearly affecting her composure. The silence of the sanctuary is officially shattered by a sharp, rhythmic vibration. Resting in the palm of her hand, the smartphone comes to life with a persistent buzz that echoes through the empty hall. The bright screen displays an incoming call from a name that carries significant weight, Mr. Yeon-Hek Han. The cold glow of the device contrasts sharply with the soft, warm lighting of the art gallery, signaling an urgent bridge between her private peace and her professional or personal life. Inside her mind, the name resonates with a sense of disbelief and questioning. A jagged, purple-hued thought bubble punctuates the air, reflecting her internal shock. One single word hangs in her consciousness. Yeon-Hek? The exclamation and question mark combined suggest that this call was the last thing she expected at this hour, leaving her to wonder what could be important enough for him to reach out and break her cherished moment of solitude.